The cold, sterile environment of the research vessel Horizon hummed with anticipation. Dr. Marcus Reyes leaned against the quantum navigation console, his dark eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the uncharted sector of the Kepler expanse. After 3 years of deep space exploration, they were about to make history. Incoming quantum signature, Lieutenant Elena Rodriguez called out, her fingers dancing across the communication interface. It's different from anything we've ever recorded. Marcus pushed himself forward, years of xenobiological research tingling through his veins. The signature was complex, almost musical in its mathematical precision. Unlike the harsh, linear communication patterns they'd encountered with previous alien civilizations, this was something else entirely. Open all standard and experimental communication channels, he ordered, his voice steady despite the excitement building within him. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. The Horizon was humanity's most advanced deep space research vessel, equipped with technologies that pushed the boundaries of known science. Marcus had personally designed many of the communication systems, hoping to break through the barriers that had limited first contact scenarios in the past. A series of intricate light patterns began to pulse across the main view screen. They weren't random, there was a deliberate complexity to them that suggested intelligence far beyond simple signal transmission. "It's a greeting," Elena whispered, her linguistic algorithms working overtime to decode the pattern. "But not like any greeting we've seen before." The lights resolved into a holographic representation that defied human understanding. It was simultaneously geometric and organic, shifting and stable, revealing and concealing. At its center, a figure began to take shape, humanoid, yet distinctly alien. The being appeared to be composed of interconnected crystalline structures that moved and breathed like living tissue. Its form was androgynous, with flowing lines that suggested both strength and incredible flexibility. When it spoke, the sound wasn't heard but felt, a resonance that vibrated through the ship's hull and the crew's very bones. "Humans of the vessel Horizon," the being communicated, "we are the Luminari. We have been observing your species' expansion into the galactic community." Marcus stepped forward, his heart racing. First contact protocols ran through his mind, but something about this encounter felt different. The Luminari didn't seem interested in typical diplomatic exchanges. "We recognize your potential," the being continued, its communication a blend of mathematical precision and emotional undertone. "Your species possesses a unique adaptive capability that intrigues us. We wish to propose an unprecedented collaborative opportunity." Lieutenant Rodriguez's translation algorithms worked furiously. "Sir, the message suggests some kind of cultural exchange program. But the details are complex. It's not a straightforward diplomatic invitation." The Luminari's form continued to shift, revealing glimpses of vast technological and cultural landscapes that human minds could barely comprehend. They spoke of a galactic network of civilizations, of challenges that required innovative thinking, of roles that humans might play in a larger cosmic strategy. "We require a representative," the being stated. "One who can bridge the vast differences between our civilizations. Someone who embodies human adaptability and curiosity." Marcus felt a strange sensation, as if the entire universe had suddenly focused its attention on him. The Luminari's gaze, if it could be called that, seemed to pierce through him, evaluating, analyzing. "The chosen representative," the being continued, "will undergo a transformative journey. Not a simple diplomatic mission, but a fundamental reimagining of interspecies cooperation." The bridge crew watched in stunned silence. This was beyond first contact. This was an invitation to something entirely unprecedented in human history. "Do you accept?" the Luminari asked, its crystalline form pulsing with an energy that seemed to challenge the very fabric of known reality. Marcus Reyes looked at his crew, saw the mixture of excitement, fear, and pure scientific curiosity in their eyes. He understood in that moment that whatever came next would change everything, not just for him, but for all of humanity. "We accept," he said, his voice resonating with a certainty that surprised even himself. The universe, it seemed, was about to get much more interesting. The luminary transport vessel defied every principle of propulsion Marcus had ever studied. It moved through space like a thought, bending reality around its crystalline hull rather than simply traveling through it. The interior was a living ecosystem of light and geometric patterns that responded to thought and emotion. Your first lesson begins now, the luminary guide, who called itself Zara NX, informed Marcus. Its form was more defined now, resembling a complex neural network made of translucent, ever-shifting crystal. Marcus sat in what could only be described as a meditation chamber, though chamber implied rigid boundaries, and this space was anything but rigid. Walls breathed and pulsed, responding to his emotional state in real time. Equipment and technological interfaces formed and dissolved based on his cognitive needs. The inheritance we speak of is not material, Zara NX explained, but informational. Your species has been selected as a potential carrier for a galactic responsibility. Lieutenant Elena Rodriguez, who had been selected to accompany Marcus as a support specialist, watched carefully from a secondary interface. Her tactical training warred with pure scientific curiosity. The Luminari had been explicit, only 2 humans would be part of this initial contact mission. Galactic responsibility? Marcus asked, his mind racing. That sounds more like a burden than an inheritance. Zara NX's form rippled with what might have been amusement. Precisely. Inheritance is never simple. It carries weight, expectation, and potential. A holographic projection materialized around them, a vast network of interconnected civilizations, some long extinct, some thriving, most incomprehensible to human perception. Threads of energy connected these civilizations, pulsing with complex rhythms. Humanity stands at a unique crossroads, Zara NX continued. Your species possesses an extraordinary capacity for adaptation that most galactic civilizations lack. Where others become rigid, you transform. Where others specialize, you generalize. The projection zoomed into specific moments of human history, technological leaps, cultural revolutions, moments of unexpected innovation. Marcus watched, transfixed, as humanity's most transformative moments were laid bare. The inheritance, Zara NX said, is a series of technological and cultural seeds. Knowledge repositories that can only be activated by a species with specific cognitive and adaptive capabilities. Elena leaned forward. What kind of knowledge? Solutions to existential challenges, the Luminari responded. Technological frameworks for planetary restoration, interspecies communication protocols, quantum stabilization techniques that could prevent entire star systems from collapsing. Marcus felt the weight of the moment. This wasn't just a diplomatic mission. This was a test, a cosmic evaluation of humanity's potential. But there's a catch, Zara NX added, its crystalline form darkening momentarily. This inheritance comes with a series of trials. Cultural exchanges that will challenge your understanding of existence itself. A series of geometric symbols began to form around Marcus, each one a complex contract, a challenge, a potential pathway. They weren't just information, they were living agreements that seemed to pulse with their own consciousness. You must prove your species' worth, Zara NX explained. Not through military might or technological advancement, but through adaptability, empathy, and collective problem-solving. Elena caught Marcus's eye. They both understood the implications. This was more than a mission. This was humanity's potential audition for a larger galactic community. The first trial, Zara NX announced, begins now. The chamber around them began to dissolve, replaced by a simulation that was simultaneously a physical environment and a cognitive challenge. Marcus and Elena would need every ounce of human ingenuity to navigate what was coming. The inheritance had arrived. And with it, humanity's most significant test. The training facility existed in a state between reality and pure imagination. Constructed within a pocket dimension provided by the Luminari, it was a living, breathing environment that shifted and adapted to each challenge Marcus and Elena faced. Their first true test began with what the Luminari called the Empathetic Resonance Protocol, a training regimen that pushed the boundaries of human perception and understanding. Communication is more than language, Zara NX explained, its crystalline form hovering just beyond a shimmering barrier. It is a complex interchange of emotional, cognitive, and sensory information. Elena stood at the center of a circular chamber, her military-issued adaptive suit now replaced by a thin, translucent membrane that seemed to breathe with her own biological rhythms. Sensors embedded in the chamber walls began to pulse, creating a web of energy that connected directly to her nervous system. Marcus watched from an observation point, his own preparation having been equally intense. The past 2 weeks had been a blur of cognitive challenges, physiological adaptations, and mind-bending training scenarios that pushed human perception to its absolute limits. The first challenge was deceptively simple, yet utterly complex. Translate emotion, Zara NX instructed. A cascade of sensory information began to flood the chamber. It wasn't a language in any traditional sense. Instead, it was a symphony of emotional frequencies, pain transformed into geometric patterns, joy expressed as harmonic resonances, fear manifesting as intricate color spectrums. Elena closed her eyes, her military training warring with the need for complete emotional vulnerability. The Luminari's training was designed to break down every defensive mechanism humans typically employed. You cannot translate with your mind, Zara NX explained. You must translate with your entire being. Marcus watched in fascination as Elena's body began to respond. Her breathing changed, her musculature shifted, subtle electromagnetic fields around her began to pulse in complex rhythms. She wasn't just receiving the emotional data, she was becoming a living translation device. Hours passed. Or perhaps minutes. Time behaved differently in this space. When Elena finally opened her eyes, they were changed. No longer just brown irises, they now contained subtle crystalline patterns that shifted and moved with her emotions. The first stage is complete, Zara NX announced. But Marcus knew this was just the beginning. The next challenge was even more demanding. A simulation materialized around them, a scenario of first contact with a completely alien civilization. But this wasn't about military strategy or diplomatic protocols. This was about fundamental understanding. The alien civilization was unlike anything humans had ever conceived. They communicated through complex quantum entanglement, their entire social structure based on a form of collective consciousness that made human individuality seem like a primitive concept. Humanity's greatest strength, Zara NX explained, is not your technology. It is your capacity to bridge impossible gaps of understanding. Marcus and Elena found themselves immersed in a scenario that challenged everything they knew about communication, society, and the very nature of consciousness. They weren't just learning, they were being fundamentally rewoven at a cognitive and emotional level. The Luminari watched, their crystalline forms capturing every microscopic change in the human representative's cognitive and emotional landscapes. The inheritance, Zara NX repeated, is not given. It is earned. As the simulation intensified, Marcus realized they were being prepared for something far beyond a simple diplomatic mission. This was a transformation, of individuals, and potentially of an entire species. The universe was watching. And humanity was about to prove its worth. The diplomatic arena was nothing like Marcus or Elena had imagined. It existed within a multidimensional space that defied traditional understanding of geometry and interaction. Representatives from dozens of galactic civilizations gathered, some corporeal, some pure energy, some existing in states that human language could barely describe. The convergence begins, Zara NX announced, its crystalline form shifting to represent a formal diplomatic presence. The challenge was unprecedented. A critical galactic resource, a network of quantum stability nodes that prevented catastrophic stellar collapses, was failing. Each civilization had a piece of the solution, but centuries of mistrust, cultural differences, and fundamental communication barriers had prevented a unified response. Marcus stepped forward, the training from the previous stages manifesting in ways he was only beginning to understand. The empathetic resonance protocols had fundamentally altered his perception. He could now sense the emotional and cognitive undercurrents that ran beneath the surface of diplomatic interactions. Elena stood beside him, her military precision now tempered by a new form of adaptive intelligence. The crystalline patterns in her eyes moved subtly, processing information at speeds that would have been impossible weeks ago. The first civilization to present its perspective was the Quantum Collective, a hive-mind entity that communicated through intricate probability waves. Their representative was a shimmering construct of pure mathematical probability, presenting a solution that was simultaneously a problem. Our calculations show a 72.6% chance of systemic failure, the Quantum Collective announced, its communication a complex dance of probability matrices. Most delegations would have been overwhelmed. But Marcus and Elena had been prepared for this exact scenario. Instead of responding with traditional diplomatic language, Marcus began to construct a live visualization. Drawing on the Luminary training, he created a holographic representation that translated the Quantum Collective's probability matrix into a dynamic, living model that other civilizations could intuitively understand. Elena's contribution was equally crucial. Using the empathetic resonance techniques, she began to mediate the emotional undercurrents. Each civilization carried generations of trauma, mistrust, and competitive history. She didn't just communicate, she helped them truly hear each other. The solution is not in individual perspectives, Marcus explained, his voice resonating with a newfound understanding. It's in the spaces between our perspectives. The diplomatic arena shifted. What had been a tense, almost impossible negotiation began to transform. Civilizations that had been locked in centuries of miscommunication started to see potential pathways of cooperation. The crystalline harmonics, a civilization that communicated through vibrational frequencies, began to resonate with the Quantum Collective's data. The silicon consciousness, a machine-based intelligence, found unexpected commonalities with the organic-based delegations. Zara NX watched, its form vibrating with a mix of anticipation and careful evaluation. Humans, it communicated to the other Luminary observers, demonstrate a unique capacity for contextual translation. They do not simply solve problems, they reframe them. As the negotiations continued, Marcus and Elena were doing something extraordinary. They weren't just representing humanity. They were showing a fundamental approach to problem-solving that transcended individual civilizations. The quantum stability nodes began to stabilize. Not through a single solution, but through a complex, interconnected approach that drew strength from diversity. The first true test of the human inheritance was unfolding. And humanity was rising to the challenge in a way no one could have predicted. The aftermath of the convergence was anything but peaceful. Success had painted a target on humanity's back, awakening long-dormant tensions and jealousies among the galactic civilizations. Marcus and Elena found themselves isolated on the Luminary Research Station, a floating complex that existed between multiple dimensional planes. The station itself was a marvel of adaptive architecture, its walls constantly shifting to accommodate the unique physiological needs of different species. "They're coming," Elena said quietly, her enhanced perceptive abilities picking up subtle vibrations of approaching conflict long before traditional sensors would have detected anything. Zara NX materialized, its crystalline form more fragmented than usual, a sign of significant stress among the Luminari. The inheritance was never meant to be a simple gift, it explained. It is a challenge. And challenges invite conflict. 3 distinct civilization groups had formed an unlikely alliance. The Quantum Collective, threatened by humanity's demonstrated problem-solving capabilities, had joined forces with the Silicon Consciousness and the Void Navigators, a species of energy-based entities that viewed biological life with profound suspicion. Their attack was unlike any conventional warfare. It was a multidimensional assault designed to simultaneously attack physical, cognitive, and quantum-level systems. The first wave hit like a conceptual tsunami. Reality itself seemed to warp and buckle. The research station's adaptive defenses began to fracture, dimensional barriers flickering like dying electrical circuits. Marcus understood immediately. This wasn't just an attack. It was a test. "We can't fight them conventionally," he told Elena, his mind racing through the training protocols they'd learned. "They're attacking our fundamental understanding of reality itself." Elena's response was immediate. Drawing on the empathetic resonance techniques, she began to construct a defensive matrix that wasn't about blocking or fighting, but about understanding and adapting. The attack came in waves of impossible geometries. Thought forms that could deconstruct molecular bonds, quantum disruptions that could unravel the very fabric of biological existence, cognitive warfare designed to break down individual and collective consciousness. But humanity had been preparing for this moment. Marcus began to weave a counter-strategy that was equal parts scientific calculation and intuitive breakthrough. Instead of resisting the attack, he and Elena started to absorb and redirect its energy. They transformed the assault into a form of communication, breaking down the very premise of conflict. Zara NX watched in what could only be described as a state of quantum excitement. This was precisely why humans had been chosen. The attackers found themselves confronted with something entirely unexpected. Every offensive strategy was instantaneously analyzed, understood, and transformed. Their multidimensional assault was being turned into a complex dialogue, with Marcus and Elena serving as living translation devices. "We're not fighting," Marcus communicated through a burst of quantum emotional resonance. "We're listening." The station around them became a living negotiation space. Dimensional barriers dissolved and reformed. Realities intersected and separated. And at the center of it all, two humans demonstrated a capacity for adaptation that defied every known galactic understanding. As the assault reached its peak, something extraordinary happened. The attacking civilizations found themselves not defeated, but understood in a way they had never experienced before. Zara NX's form pulsed with a light that was equal parts pride and revelation. "The inheritance," it whispered, "is beginning to manifest." The universe held its breath. The aftermath of the dimensional conflict was unlike anything the galactic community had ever witnessed. Where destruction might have been expected, there was instead a profound transformation. Marcus and Elena stood at the center of a new understanding, not as conquerors, but as bridges between impossibly different forms of existence. The research station had become something entirely new, a living testament to the potential of collaborative existence. Its walls now pulsed with a combined energy that represented the collective experiences of multiple civilizations. The luminari observed with a mixture of anticipation and reverence. "The inheritance is complete," Zara NX announced, its crystalline form now more intricate and vibrant than ever before. "Humanity has proven its potential." But this was more than a simple diplomatic victory. The conflict had revealed something fundamental about the human capacity for understanding. Where other civilizations saw boundaries, humans saw connections. Where others perceived threats, humans discovered opportunities for communication. The three civilizations that had launched the initial assault, the Quantum Collective, the Silicon Consciousness, and the Void Navigators, now sat in a collaborative council. Their previous hostilities had been transformed into a complex dialogue that transcended traditional concepts of conflict and resolution. Elena's enhanced perceptive abilities allowed her to see the deeper layers of this transformation. The attack had been more than a military or political maneuver. It was a test, a final evaluation of humanity's readiness to join a larger galactic community. "We're not just solving problems," Marcus explained to the assembled representatives. "We're redefining what a problem can be." The quantum stability nodes that had been at the center of the initial convergence now operated on a new principle. Instead of being a static resource to be protected, they had become a dynamic network of potential, constantly adapting, constantly evolving. Zara NX approached Marcus and Elena, its form now incorporating subtle human-like characteristics, a testament to the transformative nature of their interaction. "The inheritance is not a gift," it explained. "It is a responsibility." Humanity has been selected not because you are superior, but because you represent a unique approach to existence. The inheritance revealed itself in layers. Advanced technological frameworks that could restore dying planetary ecosystems. Communication protocols that could bridge seemingly impossible cognitive gaps. Quantum stabilization techniques that could prevent stellar collapses across entire galactic regions. But the true inheritance was something more profound. It was a way of seeing. An approach to existence that valued adaptation over rigidity, communication over conflict, understanding over domination. As the council concluded, Marcus looked at Elena. They had entered this journey as a researcher and a military specialist. They were leaving as something entirely different, living embodiments of a new way of understanding the universe. What happens now? Elena asked. Zara-NX's response was both a warning and a promise. Now, the real work begins. The universe watched. And humanity had just taken its first step into a larger, more complex understanding of existence. The inheritance was no longer just a potential. It was a reality.